All right, Mopar people, welcome back to the channel. I'm just Mopar Joe, and we are finally welding our 1968 Nightmare Dodge Charger back together here. And you can tell Mark and I have been a little busy, and my goal for the day is get the trunk pan finally welded in, get my cross brace welded on, and start layering this thing in piece by piece by piece. I still got a little more prep work to do on some stuff like this ugly edge here. I'll come back to it. Around my back glass, all that stuff, she's crispy and whatever's left over there, a lot of that's got to be replaced. I got to grind through here. I got to do this and that and the other, but here's kind of how it looks. So all this spatter of stuff is my weld through primer. Every edge that meets each other got ground down to bare metal, and then I sprayed my weld through primer last time before we left. So that left all the panels here that contact. You can kind of see where my sheet metal screw holes are. I got to add more as I go. But all that's nice and clean and ready to weld. My frame rails look good and nice and clean. They had sand to beat the band. The car was blasted, and I've got my measurements for both rear frame rails, widths, everything. I'm going to have to add a little bit of weight to this top side to bring that down that much. So I realize a jig would be better for this, but I don't have that. I do have a little bit of patience, so that'll help make this thing go back together better. Here's the floor pan itself. We did it just like everybody else does. You lay it under the car. After it's screwed in, you score it. See my lines here? We ground off anywhere that would be welded, shot the weld through primer. So all those holes are drilled and ready to go. Yeah, pretty straightforward. My edges are done. I had to switch to a different primer there, but it's all good. So let me get this thing stuck back together, screwed back together, and today I'll start welding. That's exciting stuff for me. A little bit rusty, so I went ahead and punched myself some holes and practiced welding some. A lot of the fabricator guys on YouTube that do Mopar stuff and other stuff got them a good old Hobart, just like that one. That's actually sitting on top of a Century welder that I just use for a welding cart now because, anyway, I like my Hobart. And I got some pretty good penetration on these. You can see my first row here, my heat was lower. And as I kept going on, I'd turn it up and up. So I got my heat as high as I could get it, kind of controlled my wire speed. I'm wanting to get something about like that, so that whenever I run over it with a flap disc or something, I'd kind of started, I think, in the center. So I got a little bit bigger pools here. That's okay. But just, yeah, the more I go, the better I get. And I'll have a little tiny spot there to touch in again. But to me, this one looks pretty good. If I can just run across it. Obviously, I would put it, even that's an old wore out disc, put it on the 3M roll lock and hit it one time, and that dude's done, and I can move on. But some of these other ones, I may need to touch just barely with my grinder and knock the ugly off. Just getting back in the groove of it. My idea is start in the center and work my way outward instead of bouncing all over on the panel. Some people do their stuff a little differently. I got my center block on here holding down in that corner so it doesn't spring up or get funny. And yeah, just moving down the line. Well, it's a new day. Bought myself some new gloves, some sleeves, some glasses, and a new bottle of gas. So life is better. Before I add any more panels to this, I gotta weld that dude up. I think I'd like to dress my welds, and I see a lot of guys online, they throw it all together, have every panel on it, and then they're like laying in a trunk, trying to lay and wrap around to be able to grind that weld off and make it look pretty. I can stand here right now and do it in 5 minutes, and it looks so much better. And there's Mopar Mark sneaking in with his Capri Sun drink. Yeah. There you go. We shot us a little primer over our bare spots so that they wouldn't just be rusting away as we kept working. and I kept it far enough away where I'm going to be welding here. That's plenty far that it won't bubble up or do any of that business. But for the most part, his spot welds look kind of like that. And I sent him some pictures. He said he's fine with that. If it got shot another full coat of primer and painted, especially trunk mat, you never know it was there. But we can do a little bit more finish work to them if we need to. And Mark is finger sanding out our little grooves here, because this trunk pan had sat outside or something. See, there's some little ugly rust down in those. But we're gonna do inner tubs on both sides now. A lot of this, that's never been cleaned up. And I think, if you can see its flakiness, some years back he did some POR or something, which helped preserve his floorboard. But that stuff's gotta get stripped back. This edge, you gotta get cleaned up and all that stuff before I can put an inner tub in. Got those dressed, all that looks good. I was gonna go ahead and test the inner tub, excuse me. But as you can see, the inner tub overlaps the outer tub, and I didn't want to put the outer tub, attach it to the inner tub until I knew for sure that my quarter panel was going to mate back up to it. So I had my drilled holes from earlier. Let me bring you down so you can actually see things. And I wanted to get all those holes back in line with each other. So before we left the other day, we went ahead and hung the quarter back on. So I can back up here. All that looks pretty happy right now. Maybe just a shade high, but very doable, right? All that still looks happy. So now that I've got that, I do have my screw in here. Like that hole should have never existed. I don't think I drilled that hole. I think whenever I got the panels, it was already there. So I'll get her welded up. But I need to pop this one off to be able to weld those. So then I can slide him back in, start stitching it up. After I weld that, I'm gonna yank the quarter off then and go ahead and finish my weld up in here. I don't think I will go ahead and put these two together yet, all the way through, until basically I'm ready to put the outer quarter on. And just for funsies, I went ahead and put our trunk extension back in to be sure it lines up and is happy with everything. So I've got to move him back. I just have it hanging in there for now, but all that fits back up. And then I can get it welded from the bottom side. That's just how I'm choosing to do this. You can do it any way you'd like. I do have our rear cross brace on with some heavy welds on him. All that's lovely. But you see my little holes through here, all the way down. I'm just going to basically set on my creeper, set on a stool, set on the ground, I don't care. As it's clamped, go through and weld those. It's kind of a fun pain, but it is what it is. The rails have some like POR 15 on them or something that he did a while back, and you can kind of see where as I was welding through there, it was bubbling off, burning off. I'm fine with that. That shows me I got penetration, but I did have to use my blowgun and put it out every so often. So I think they're going to dress all that later. What my main job is to get the metal put in and get this thing done up. So I'm pretty pleased with this. Those are, well, a few of them need a little grinding, but overall, I think they look pretty good. I'm gonna hit it with a wire wheel and grind the tops off a few and call that good. Out here, I think I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 plug welds, and I dressed them down some. I did a couple here. I haven't touched those yet, but man, they're flat. I don't even know if they need anything. And then back here, I think I had 6 or 8. I went ahead and dressed those down, and that's plenty good. It's actually covered by other panels and stuff, so all looks nice. got that side cleaned up too. So moving on, this is nice and level, looks great in there. I'm gonna get to attaching my inner tub, inner and outer tubs somewhat here in just a minute. I gotta get this quarterback off, but it's going my way. A mighty fine place to stop for the day. I got our inner tub welded all the way around inside. I'll show you in a second. I went ahead and stuck them together here and quadruple checked the quarter panel, and she looks nice. I've got, ignore my ugly welds, I haven't dressed them yet. I went ahead and welded the outer underneath, then I folded the inner over and I welded it to the outer and to the, I'm welded all the way around here. I just hit it with a wire wheel lightly so I could see what needed touched up. Touch those up. I'm back around here. I've only got 2 screws holding this on, but I wanted a double, triple, quadruple check. Be sure my door was still happy. Been burning holes through my sleeves today, and I think it's about time to call it. Start back tomorrow. So I got this one all raw welded up. Mark's gonna touch it up with a grinder now. I prefer to weld it from this side, because when you look on this side, it's almost nothing. You can just see the penetrations where it all went through. But whoever had the car before drilled them all on this side. So we're gonna make some lemonade out of whatever these pickles are here. And I got these tacked up, 1, 2, 3 in the front. There's a screw right there. And it fits really nicely with this Chinese off-brand quarter panel. Gap's happy. And we've got 4 or 5 screws around here. So I'm taking both these tubs off together. I'm gonna leave this part where I can weld it later, but I'm gonna clamp this dude off the car and weld it together. So y'all let me know if that's a cardinal sin or not. We're making progress. That left side tub is welded together now. I'll bring you in so you can kind of see. I dressed my welds on this back side all the way up to the center point of what would actually be seen. So it looks pretty nice, and you shouldn't be able to tell that's welded. I pulled that extension up for just a minute, and I was refitting this rear panel. So Randy came by, helped me hang the quarters back on it. Mark's out today, and he noticed, he said, man, I'm not sure if you can tell or not, but this corner right here, it was actually lower than it is right now. It was touching, see where it dug into that, the corner of our piece there. But the other side, the AMD side, AMD, they all look nice and triangulated and wonderful. That gap's nice, all that jazz. And I did remind him, you know, this quarter is our off-brand quarter that we're making work. But I popped out the extension, and I went back to test fitting. And I've got this, I think, as close as I possibly can. I double checked my measurement from the floor to the bottom of the frame rail. Right here, find the spot. And same side, it's within a 32nd of an inch. So what I did, that's why I've got my 2 bricks on here. I moved my railroad jack again, and see how it doesn't have any weight on it. I need to move it right back to there. So just barely as it touches, with the 2 bricks to hold that side down, because our pan's already welded in. I didn't want any spring up or down, left or right. Something else I'm gonna do before I weld these quarters on, I'm gonna check and see if the car is actually square. So that was, I talked to my buddy Brian, Body Shop Brian. He's been a large help to me. And he said, you know, since the whole car is torn apart and everything, right now's the time. Be sure it's square, left to right, just like a building. And you know, I think the difference can be, he said, as long as it's within 3 millimeters, you may want to go to use the millimeter side of your ruler instead of inch side, it's easier to keep up with that. So 3 millimeters side to side is kind of the standard he's always been taught 30 years ago, and I think it still stands, and that's what I'm going to go for. But I've got this dude in place where I need it now. I can weld my inner tub in after I reattach it. I set my Dutchman back in place. I've still got to weld in that corner to before this video ends. It may not be today, but this will be a very long video. I'm looking, this door gap is a little bit wide at the top still. Actually here. And I can move my door back some. This is not attached at the bottom right now. I've been just studying some, around and round in circles, but we're getting closer. And that's what it's all about. I mean, it's a lot of trial and error, test fit and retest fit and test fit and retest fit. My width from here to there is good. Remember previously I tried my trim corners on. They looked nice. I had my trunk lid on. It looked nice. And I am going to refit that stuff again before I finally welded my Dutchman and such. But I'm getting really close to be able to finish welding our extension in and that tub. So once I get those fit one more time, I can pull that quarter off. I'll leave this one alone. Leave our tail panel alone for now. Another thing, I've got to trim around our indentions here. I called the great Mopar Keith, and he sent me exact pictures of the car in their shop. And I said, look, you know, I got this aftermarket lip, and he explained they give you extra material. So if I trim out around here, that'll still leave my holes for whenever I clamp. I can weld these dudes from the inside, boom, 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 all the way down. And all you'll see is just burn marks here. A lot less grinding, it's much cleaner, factory looking, which it's going to be hidden behind a bumper anyway. Same thing here, this panel. When the taillight panel goes on, I will lean over and weld them from the inside and go right along and give it a lot cleaner job. So hopefully I'll stick around for all that stuff. I got all this welded, and I welded the trunk extension on the inside. I got to pull this quarter off to be able to weld it all around this front side right here. Just like you can see over there. I still got to weld that top bracket right there too, which is this one. Boom, pow, boom. But we're getting a lot closer, and I feel pretty good about it. It's this panel, I got our gap tightened up and even all the way down, so if I need to, I can just cheat that door back barely. These are actually really close right now. I'm gonna leave this until I get this car back on the ground, back on its suspension after the whole rear end's welded. Or rear half the car's welded. Then I'm gonna set these door gaps, I think, one more time before I either send this car home or blow it apart for paint. One or the other. Rubber side tub is on. I went ahead and wire wheeled all my welds. I did not grind them down smooth and pretty because when the quarter goes on, nobody ever sees them. I wire wheeled them all, wiped them good, and shot my rust encapsulator on all the way around. I'm more concerned, yes, people will see this area if they lay their head in here, but they won't. They'll actually see the inside, like my magnet will stop sticking. So they may see that. Okay, I'm fine with that. It looks kind of like a factory weld. And after that gets sanded and primed a few times with whatever the body color is going to be, just like that. Discussed it with the owner. He's totally fine with that. So, tub's in. Tub's good. Our extension's in. I had to cheat a little bit here, and I don't need to hear anybody cry about it. This is nice and flat, smooth. Right here, I had to go off a little bit. And that was when I had that Golden Star quarter fit up, this made everything perfect on the bottom. So I had to kind of split the difference. So with a little bit of seam sealer, nobody will ever know that either, because you'll be standing here looking into the car that way. So you never ever know it. They weren't perfect from the factory. But I feel good about the project pushing on. And on the other side, I noticed, melt my door up, this is still lead. I gotta burn that out of there. There's a little bit of seam sealer in there. I'm not too concerned about this right now, but there's a couple other ugly spots I have to grind off. Down here's pretty ugly, as we could say. There's more metal hanging on there, so I'm gonna have to get on my creeper, lay down with a grinder and a face shield, and clean all that off, and then probably take my torch and burn the rest of this lead out if there is any. Let it fall out of there, because when I'm trying to smack a new quarter on top of all this lumpiness, it doesn't seat very well. So we are so close to weld the car together. Door gaps looking better every adjustment. The back glass, we checked it again. I put our trim back in, put a few clips in, stuff like in here and over there still got to be patched up, but that's fine. It's not a big deal to do. I'd like to have the quarter on before I patch it. You may think otherwise, but that's okay. This is looking nice in alignment. I got to knock this rust back off from literally over the weekend. Test fit. The back end has not looked this good since we've messed with this car. And part of that is our panel was just crooked. It was crooked. I couldn't quite get the corner to do correctly with that panel there. You see their old green overspray from before I got it, and there's even some bird crap. This is looking nicer. I'm not final welding any of that stuff yet. But I got the quarters, I think, ready to final weld on the front sides. So my gap here is still a little wider than I want, so I can work with him some. This I just got a screw in for now, but we were worried about their back glass trim to be sure it still fits. So all that looks good. The inner tubs, I gotta have Mark's gonna go through and grind my little welds in here. I'll have to touch up just a little bit, but they'll be 90% perfect. I ground that one. See, I gotta re-weld that little spot there, but it's coming together more and more. But the plan and goal of the day is get this thing welded up, or as much as we can. Since this is about the third or fourth test fit, I did have to grind off a bunch of that old ugly panel there, so it'll get reclamped after we get our Dutchman back in place. We had to quit the other day, and the Dutchman never got finalized yet. I want to get the trunk lid back on one more time. And you see I got two different kinds of weld through primer, but that's where my little screws go in for my hinges on both sides. We hang the trunk lid. We check the trunk lid. If the trunk lid's good, we can start welding this thing up. Looking nice. I went ahead and got me some in my front holes here. My goal is start in the center of this panel, front side, weld back and forth, let stuff cool. Not worried about warping right now, especially around this short side of metal here. But I really want it tight and nice to the original panel. I think people can really tell that. When I'm done, these are going to get dressed down to where that you can't tell they were ever welded. So it won't quite look factory, but it won't look like a butchery hack job. We're not into doing hack work around here. Beyond there, I wanted to show you our new trunk gaps. Look here. That's so much happier and nicer. I know it's low right here. I mean, you can see the panel's higher than this. It doesn't have a rubber in it right now, so all that can be adjusted. Same thing there. See my weld through showing through. I'm happy. I got a lot of holes to weld up through here. It just kind of happened that way, but I'll probably weld those in. I may even weld in my big 3 holes, dress it all, and then start over brand new when I fit my end cap again. but nothing to it but to do it at this point. So let me get a little weld on and I'll bring you back. So Mark's got our front edge cleaned up and sprayed. Just barely see our little welds. I don't know if the lighting's good enough for that or not, but the idea is for them to go unseen. I can ask the owner what he wants to do next. I know I'd like to put a little seam sealer right in between that gap there, but right now at least we got something on it's protected, won't start rusting. And you may could take a couple of coats of high build primer and just leave it, or we just put a little dress on it, barely any filler or spot putty. And I'm welded down here at the bottom, and also up against the, there you go, up against the rocker panel itself, because there's a lot of strength right there. And around our wheel tub, they hadn't been dressed yet. I think we're going to stop. Oh, I got these welded too. 1, 2, 3 here. And I trimmed that off where it was so wavy and terrible before. But a lot of that I could weld from the inside. Same thing on that side. See those holes shining through? So that actually helps me out some. For this, I'm going to take a band of metal like Kevin Tetz did in his video. I'm welded all across here. We haven't dressed it yet. I told Mark I wanted to stop and double check the back glass fitment on that. Just a little bit of rusty stuff's coming away anyway. I'm welded on the bottom side of the Dutchman, from the Dutchman meets the quarter all the way down. Had to lay in there. Got me a little burn because I didn't wear my gloves that time. I want to double check, see how the back glass fits, and be sure something else is not funny, but it did just fit just fine. But I'm going to weld the top of the Dutchman soon. I got a clamp all the way down. Our trunk gaps are still nice. Trunk works great. It's sank down a little bit right there from all the weight being on it. No rods in it yet. But we're moving on. I laid my head there and I welded up in there. I don't know if you can see it or not. And then I came back around this way and laid my head over here and welded the other side of the trunk bracket to the outside of where the quarter meets the Dutchman. And then I laid back there again and welded that whole panel there. And we just ground them down lightly and shot a little black on them there. I really like the rust encapsulator, if you haven't seen it yet, from Eastwood. See, that's still tacky, but it'll dry. It's just a 1K deal. You can scuff it and paint right over it if you want to, or scuff it and prime over it, sand it, prime over it, whatever you want to do. I think I'm stopping there for now on this side. See, this needs a little bit more adjustment here. I can put that down, weld those in, make it pretty. I haven't put my gutter in there yet, you know, any of that stuff. So it still free floats. We roped our lid up so it doesn't fall down and kill me. See my fancy sleeves. Tired of getting my arms burned up. This is our off-brand quarter, so we've been doing our best with it. Mark noticed, and we actually measured from that point. You know, ignore that ugly stuff, that's getting welded up. From that point to here is a shorter distance. We measured it like by, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch or something from there to there. You won't be able to notice standing back or any of that, but if you're to walk up, measure, and look. But I'm saving tail panel 2 pieces for last, after we get front of that quarter, this wheelhouse welded, this wheelhouse to the quarter welded, and the top of the quarter again. I might not have to shave this off as much this time, I'll see. I just like to, I got it out of the way last time and life was so much better. Back glass still fits good. I've got us welded to past the halfway point down the Dutchman top piece and those need to be ground. So while I'm welding, Mark will grind those off and grind that section off, and we'll keep pushing. Got lots more to do. And where I left off the other day, driver's side front door edge, I went ahead and welded. I had Mark come back by and grind it, and I told him it doesn't have to be perfect yet. I would try to touch it in and be more careful about my grinding. So things like this, there was a hole right there and I had to weld it in. So I put my piece of copper behind it, welded it. I'm going to dress that down to where it's a straight line again. Same thing with this one, there. Those are all ugly to me. I like for it to have a nice straight kind of factory looking edge. And the majority of that other stuff looks pretty good. My spots are a little ugly, like there I need to weld a little more in, but you know, I've seen it both ways. Unless you have the correct pinch welder, a lot of guys dress that down, prime it 2 or 3 times and paint it, and it is what it is. Other people take just a slight bit of filler and fill in that spot, sand it off, make the line straight, and that way it's nice and clean when you open the door. Everybody knows the car's had a quarter put on it, because it's not perfect factory looking welds like you'll get at Noel Automotive. But this is not a Noel Automotive job here. This is Mopar Joe's fixing a nightmare to make somebody's dreams come true. So I've got to get that stuff dressed back up. I did go ahead and start welding through here. Some of my holes that were drilled here, Mark had done them a little bit too far inboard. So I've got those re-welded. I need to put my backer here and weld those back up, grind them back down, make that go away. We haven't ground or dressed any of that yet. That was kind of a quick and dirty grind job through there. And I need to touch up spots like that and that and that. I knew I would. But, you know, overall, it's just progress. I want everything to be welded nice and straight. I got a good panel overlap here. I probably showed you that at some point in this video. And this will probably be the longest video in the world, but we're getting a whole buttload of stuff done. And I don't have Mark with me today, so whatever I get welded up, I can leave to have him grind later. My metal gap through here is not terrible, but some of it is still kind of wavy. And I still have to weld my backside of the panel. Little back glass fun coming at you. Let me get up here. I just popped my piece of trim down for now. And right here, we can see this is gonna transition nicely when I get my piece of metal in there. And this will be a lap weld. A lot of people may not like that, but it's okay. Right here, this is a nice, smooth, straight transition, although that piece of metal's rotted out and there's not a big gap, not much gap at all. So that looks good. This is our AMD side. This was our off-brand side. And I've got a gap here, so I got to fix that. See where we kind of jet in right there? You should be able to see it now. And there's my piece of trim, so it'll go down. But if you will recall, there was nothing here. Let me see if I can get this back off there. There was nothing there. So the way I fixed that, it is double layered, if you can kind of tell. I laid my nice flat piece of metal that was nicely curved and trimmed. And then I had another nice flat piece of metal on this bottom. And I clamped those in place. I then found my piece of metal here that was kind of shaped like a funny triangle. You can see I had remnants of a weld, straight weld here. So my triangle piece that curved in, and then I just had a little gap there that I put my other piece in. There's a piece of, looks like an old screw or something to pop in. So I'm really pleased with this so far. It needs cleaned up. But if you keep grinding this, it gets so thin, right, that you could do that and push through. I don't want any thin spots in this. So I'm gonna have to call time out at some point, get it really nice, and then be able to put my final layer of filler or whatever I want to over it. But my issue right here is, see, that was split. I did not split that. I think it came split when I got it. that needs to jet out and transition that better for us. Because remember, I'm going to have a piece of metal up here that connects all this goodness and connects our top to here. And we need this to be straight again to match our piece of trim. So I can use the trim as a guide, or I mean, I can basically eyeball that. It's so obvious. So I think what I'm gonna do is split here one more time, get that nice and straight as I want it. I might have to take a little metal out again. I'm not sure. I'll see in just a second. And then weld it back straight after I'm holding it out. So once that's done, then I can fill that gap back in, or I can go ahead and lay my piece of metal, long metal here if I'd like to go ahead and connect that. I do find that a lot more better. I had to cut down, straight down, and then cut this way to allow that whole piece to swing in. And I was gonna go ahead and do my filler piece here just because it's easy. I'm standing here. It has a little bit of flex to it there. I can pull it all in. I don't have a long enough piece to do it all in one, so I think I'm gonna wait. But it's gonna be nice because it's gonna bridge that gap just lovely. I'll wait on that metal to get here. I feel good about my corner now. I even got my little blaster out, laid my quilt in here and sandblasted that area if there was any porosity or anything. So it's nice and clean right now. So I'll probably treat it before I leave here so it doesn't rust or rot or do anything. I can't wipe it or do anything in there yet because I'll have enough heat in this area that it might cause that to not have a good time. So I'll just probably put some treatment on there and keep going. It's another lovely day in Charger weld up land. I went ahead and welded all along that seam, got those done. I got a cutout still for where the actual bumper rear braces triangulate in here, but I wanted to get that seam welded up, so I did welded most of them from the inside. So if you see that, you can see the penetration through that. That probably should have been ground off, but I didn't know exactly where it'd be, but we're going to grind it off anyway, cut those out. The other ones I welded from inside and outside where I had my screw holes, so I had a screw every so often, boom, 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 sucking that in. Then I can just take my little body hammer and tighten that gap up. So all this is getting seam sealed anyway. I'll have Mark clean that up here in a minute. The goal of the day is, it's early on right now, I'm gonna lay in here, clamp up our Dutchman, weld in our trunk brace from the opposite side, so I have to lay this way just like I did that one in all its glory. And then I'm going to move to our tail light panel again, doing through here. So if you see those holes, it hasn't been screwed yet, so that'll get pulled in tighter. I kind of like welding that from the inside. It'll have a little bit of, you know, it'll look similar to like that right there, where there's not as much big slag ugly hanging through, and it doesn't have to be ground off as hard. So get that done. We'll pull our lid down because remember our hinges will be fixed. We'll bring our lid back down. This gap is just barely too tight right now. So once I reset it, I can get our outer piece. Remember that the end cap. Double check its fitment again, because all these ugly booger holes will go away, and I'll re-drill my 3 nice ones on that side. This side is fairly well where it's going to be at, but before I finish that up, I want to retest those 2 items, and hopefully we can roll the rear end back under this and roll it out today, walk around and look. We about got her licked now, boys. There's our Charger. Mark's going to get us some waters, as it is hotter than the 4th of July out here, literally and figuratively. Got both rows welded on the back. We are dead nuts level everywhere that we want to be. I did not weld this yet. It's still ugly. It'll be ugly for the day. y'all don't judge me too harshly, as that's our Nightmare quarter panel. But our charger's coming together nicely. See where I got my corner made up over there. Still needs some more love. I got to get some rust seal on that to protect it. And next time I'll bring y'all along as I do my strips of metal here. Need to tighten up my door gap just barely via the front fender. See how it's too tight right now. So that's a blessing to bring her back just barely. We got to finish welding just a little bit around the inside of that lip. But it is really starting to look like a car. Be a good opportunity to have the thing outside and sweep the shop out, because it is full on dirty in there. Right now our back glass trim fits nicely. I got to weld a few more little panels up there where metal is missing and gone. But I figured I'd bring y'all along on the saga. It's been a few weeks. Work here, there, and yonder. Thank y'all for watching, and I'll catch you next time. All right, Mopar people.